Welcome to the Ohio Partnership for Success Grant Program, Partnering with Schools to Collect Data webinar. My name is Dr. Leslie Ware. I'm a research associate at Ohio University's Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Affairs. This webinar will provide information about working with your local school districts to collect survey data within one or more schools. This webinar will include information specific to the Strategic Prevention Framework Partnerships for Success grant, but it is also applicable to a wide number of funding opportunities. The school-based data collection checklist, found within the Materials section of the Partnering with Schools to Collect Data webpage, provides step-by-step recommendations covered within this webinar. Prior to meeting with your school district superintendent, you need to determine what you are requesting. This involves having a survey you are requesting to use for data collection and thinking through what role you are asking the schools to undertake. Before you can identify which survey you should use, identify what information must be collected in order to meet your data needs and the needs of any partnering organizations. The SPIF-PFS focuses on two substances, underage drinking for 12 to 21-year-olds and prescription drug misuse and abuse for 12 to 25-year-olds. This grant also requires collecting and reporting on specific community outcome measures, also known as COMs. Meet with any other organizations your coalition is partnering with and identify any specific measures they need to collect or any other data collection requirements. The survey you select needs to meet the funding requirements as well as long-term goals of your coalition and any partnering organizations. We recommend the OYES survey. OYES stands for Ohio's Healthy Youth Environment Survey. It is free, web-based. It includes the required measures for the SPIF-PFS as well as a number of other measures for grant requirements. The OYES is a collaborative effort by the Ohio Department of Education, Health, Mental Health and Addiction Services, Ohio National Guard, and representatives from higher education, juvenile courts, foundations, and community service providers. As such, it meets the criteria for a number of different grant projects. The analysis and reporting for this survey is also free. However, the data belongs to the school district and you must obtain the data from the superintendent. In some instances, there's already a survey being used in your community. Determine if the survey includes all the necessary measures for your coalition as well as partnering organizations, and if it does not, can it be customized? Also, determine who would be responsible for the various aspects of this survey, including survey analysis, and reporting of the data. Thinking through your data collection should be done before approaching superintendents and school administrators. Determine the specifics of the collection as much as possible. For example, will the survey be pencil and paper or web-based? What grades will be surveyed? What materials can you provide the schools, such as opt-out and consent forms, information on the survey, and instructions for school staff overseeing survey deployment? Those are all necessary materials in order to support data collection. Also, identify any timelines for your coalition or partnering organizations that need to be met. Using those requirements, build a timeline for data collection that includes registering for the survey, opt-out and consent forms, and data collection windows. If you don't have time constraints for your data collection, just come knowing how far in advance you will need to provide for survey registration, opt-out, and consent, so you can have an informed discussion with superintendents. A Memorandum of Understanding, also known as an MOU, is a way to formalize the agreement between your coalition and school district. It ensures that each party understands and agrees to the roles, responsibilities, and timeline for data collection. There is an MOU template created specifically for partnering with schools and a separate MOU webinar on the PFS website that provides detailed instructions on its use. It is recommended that you use an MOU when partnering with the schools in your community. You would provide as many details as possible within the MOU and bring it to your meeting with the superintendent. When you approach the superintendents in your community, make sure you have thought through and can concisely describe the benefits of data collection for the schools. Specify how your coalition would use the data and what opportunities it would provide the community as a whole. In many rural communities, the Education Service Center, also known as ESC, holds monthly superintendent meetings. Several community coalitions have had success using these meetings as a way to introduce the idea of data collection to superintendents across their counties. Obtaining school participation. Make sure to hold an initial conversation with the superintendent. As we discussed, please come informed with as much information as you can. If you have a survey selected, you should bring it with you. Advantages of data collection for the communities and schools should be thought out in advance and be able to be concisely described. If you have the survey, as I said, please bring a copy and any accompanying materials. Many surveys already come with opt-out parental notification and materials for marketing the survey throughout the community. Discuss survey options. If there are options between different surveys that meet the criteria for your coalition and other organizations, make sure that you bring the different surveys with you so you can discuss it with the superintendents, as schools often have certain information that they need to collect or that would allow them to participate in certain programs and projects. And obtain permission and approval for the survey from the superintendent at the time. If you have an MOU, you should specify which survey in the MOU. If you have multiple surveys to choose from, you can write it in the MOU there at your meeting, or update it and send it to the superintendent to complete and sign later. If you have a timeline, again, make sure that you have that information with you. School openings and closures should also be discussed, as well as any holidays or other important school events that may interfere with your timeline and need to be worked around. And also discuss the windows for data collection. If you have the MOU, this information should be completed within the MOU and signed by both your coalition and the superintendent. And then while you're at that meeting, get contact information from at least 2 site coordinators for each school, or get information about the principal that you can contact for that. And any IT contact information would also be helpful for web-based surveys. Again, it is possible to contact the principal and have a follow-up conversation with each school individually, as sometimes site coordinators and IT staff are going to differ between the schools. Finalize your survey. This is different depending on the needs of your coalition and community partners and the survey you intend to use. Make sure that you update the survey, get final approval from your superintendent, and register for the survey deployment if that is a necessary step. Ohio law requires that parents and guardians receive notification of your intent to survey their student, as well as an opportunity to opt the student out from survey participation. Send the opt-out form to parents 3 weeks before survey deployment. Make sure that this is worked into your timeline that you presented to the superintendent. Usually, opt-out forms are passive. There's a passive consent, meaning that unless the parent says otherwise, they are providing consent that their student participate. And opting the student out requires explicitly following up and saying that the student should not participate. You must use 2 different forms of communication for opt-out and notification. Schools can put information on their website, in a newsletter, or in an email, in addition to sending home a paper notification. There must be a reminder sent to parents and guardians prior to the survey, and you must keep a record of any student that's opted out for at least 4 years. Confirm with schools that the opt-out process has been initiated. Make sure to establish site coordinators, the staff who will be overseeing the survey process, for each school. You should contact the site coordinators and discuss the specific needs of the survey. Web-based surveys need computers, internet connectivity, and links need to be tested, and someone will need to read the confidentiality statements to students at the time of survey deployment. Paper and pencil surveys require that a specific number of surveys need to be printed and dropped off to the site coordinators and picked up. Also, check with each site coordinator to solidify the time of the survey. When you work with a site coordinator, you need to keep the line of communication open. Prepare a short training for each site coordinator, which includes an explanation of the survey, why it is important, how it is kept confidential, as well as what materials you'll be using. Find out who is going to be the site coordinator at each school as soon as possible, and make sure to meet with them, keep in contact, and make yourself available to help. After our survey deployment window should have been completed, confirm that the data collection took place. Contact each site coordinator and confirm that data was collected. If there were problems, try to work to reschedule if at all possible. Take the time to reflect on your data collection process. Debrief with each site coordinator to identify any issues they had, lessons learned, and ideas on how to circumvent problems next time. Also, make sure to show your appreciation to all the individuals at each school who helped you. Make sure that you take notes on your lessons learned and how to improve your next collection. This is how you can create a sustainable data collection plan, one that will continue for years. There are additional webinars that you might find helpful for data collection. These are other webinars that you might find helpful. The Memorandum of Understanding webinar, which will walk you through formalizing your data collection partnership. Human Subjects Protection. This webinar and accompanying materials provides details on confidentiality and stewardship of data. We also have if you plan to collect data outside of schools with the 18 to 25 population, there's a webinar series made up of 4 modules that will introduce you to the Young Adult Community Member Survey and its accompanying Excel data analysis tool. Module 1 provides an overview of the Young Adult Community Member Survey, its purpose and use. Module 2 is designed to help you understand how to administer and organize the Young Adult Community Member Survey. Module 3 provides information about entering the survey data into the available Excel database designed to accompany the Young Adult Community Member Survey. Finally, Module 4 gives step-by-step instructions on how to use the Excel database to analyze the data and produce reports of the results. Thank you for joining us today.